What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mystics MMOs. I'm your host, Mystic Raven. So I imagine a couple people now are asking themselves, how did Mystic do it? Okay. Well, I left some source material in the description below. Now, this isn't the material I was taught or studied, but it's still good source material from Berkeley. And I do suggest, if you are interested in this topic, I would recommend you take a look at this because it's relevant. There's a lot more detail that goes into studying these type of effects, but regardless, I was able, like I said yesterday, I took a break from gaming, but I actually ended up going back. Now, I no longer work in the field due to unfortunate circumstances. But you don't take anybody's skill set away, right? That shit just does not fucking happen, I promise you. Can I do this? Looks like I did it. Oh, okay. All right, so let me adjust the volume here. So I've been having a kind of a it's really loud. So I've been having quite a bit of a moment. It's kind of bittersweet in a lot of ways because I dealt with a lot of shit. But so like people were like, oh blah 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 and blah 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 blah, and I'm like, what the fuck? I swear. But it's relevant. As you look through the material, you'll notice patterns, right? There are patterns. And when, like I said, I got the imports report, I'm aware of what pandemics do. In every one of these scenarios, in every one of them, there's a supply issue. Followed by what? Labor increase, thus inflation. Now, take into consideration bond purchasing that was happening prior to said pandemic. Now we have recipe for disaster. That was why slowing demand was so important. But as I said, a specific individual went rogue, panicked, and open it up. After that, I could map it all with almost complete accuracy, with two exceptions. The third being the third stimulus being one, and one I was hoping for an October crash to stave off the problems we got coming in now, which is, I already made a video, and I'll do a video, with the dates and everything of all my social media posts for people if they're interested in that, to say, to verify that I did these prior, because they have the timestamps on them, so I can't remove those because they're on my social media. But anyways, so I was able to map everything with complete accuracy. Now the biggest thing about this is a lot of people don't know that, right? Like, they don't know my background, they don't know whatever. They're like, oh, what would he know, and it's like, okay, well, this is, going to be a hard one. And then I had every fucking Trump supporter fucking arguing with me. I'm like, do you guys know what you're arguing against? Oh, it's going to hurt the economy worse if... No. I promise you, no. I promise you. The more this goes and the more we just act like there's not a problem, that's making a problem worse. I promise you that. And the more people went against it, I was even able to convert the downtrends due to the infection rate at one time, which was pretty fucking awesome in my opinion. I thought I was on some really cool shit. I was like, look at me. I got this shit like locked the fuck down. But, But then I told people, I'm like, we've got bigger problems. We have overvalued assets. We have a zero interest rate into the housing market. That might all seem good and dandy and strong for the economy, but actually in the end, it's going to actually, be very, very bad. Very bad, very, very bad. And, and that's what's going to happen, right? Now, inflation is a monetary policy that occurs. Okay, you have to understand that. There's no getting around, inflation. Okay, it generally has to occur, and it does. And you can track that since the beginning of it all, since all of it. It pushes up assets. So and then of course it offsets debt. Now the biggest thing for me. Knowing that I didn't work in the field, I kept asking myself, but it becomes obsessive, right, for a person like me, right, because this is what I was groomed to do. And so during this time, I was very obsessive with the modifications into the projections. Okay, so, and of course, that's how I was able to determine not the exact moment in which we would see inversion, but you're roughly about the time in which inversion should be occurring. So, and the war in Ukraine doesn't help, but it is not the current economic scenario is not a contributing factor to the shock to what we're experiencing post-pandemic, right? And we're not really out of the woods with the pandemic. If anything, the China lockdowns is another contributing factor that's going to be associated to these elements. So I want to kind of reintegrate to people the extremity in which we are going to be facing these unfortunate circumstances. So, and then when people, I'm giving you guys a heads up, and this is not financial advice. So I'm giving you guys information for you to do the research. And then contact a financial advisor if you feel you need to, in order to, put yourself in a better position. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's probably one of the most important things that I could probably offer anybody at this particular moment. People are like, well, why didn't you fucking tell us sooner? Well, I gave a couple people a heads up, but the biggest thing about this for me was, I did this for my social media, and because, I'm a has-been, I did call the 98 housing correction, which was pretty fucking dope. At 20 years old, I was 20 years old when I called the 98 housing correction, and unfortunately, though, my peers, my colleagues did not listen to me. Though that was my job, but nobody wants to listen to bad news. Oh, you're such a bear. You're such a fucking bear. And it's like, you know what? I ain't got time for this bullshit. Fine, fuck it. Who gives a fuck if the company loses millions of dollars? Hundreds of millions. I don't give a fuck. Fuck it. And then it happens, and I go strutting in the office and tell an Ivy League grads to suck it. But, the thing about it is, yeah, I love those fuckers. Because they just think they're so fucking hot. Anyways, the biggest thing about it was, for me, I reverted, because like I said, I studied this. This was going to be, had I finished college, which I didn't, but had I finished, this was going to be my paper. This was going to be my submission for my master's, right? Eventually, that's what I was going to do it on anyways. Justifiably so, because, I thought it was great material. I never thought I'd live through one. I just never thought that was going to happen. Now you have all these supposed experts, right, who think they understand they're using technicals and their technicals are going to fail. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. A couple of them are making the standard adjustment from the day-to-day trading volume, and that's pretty good. I mean, especially when individuals can do that. But unfortunately, they're underestimating the amount of the assets in comparison to the demand. Okay, so this is a trend that's going to catch even a lot of those individuals off guard. Okay, so, and there's nothing you can do. Okay, I love it when people blame the war, but the war doesn't. Wars do not move typically markets in downward trends. Typically, war stimulates economies. Okay, so I know that's another kind of mind buster right there, right? It's kind of going to be like, what? Wars, stimulate economies? Yeah, a lot of times. You might get a couple of hiccups here and there, but doing the concern. But usually, as far as growth, it typically always has a pattern. But yeah, it's bad. It's all bad. I'm not gonna lie to you. I could, but I'm not going to. And I have the verification below. So yeah. And you can see where it's going to go. You can see the correlations, actually. Now, inflation will adjust minimum wage, and we'll see that shortly, a few months, I anticipate. And the politicians aren't doing themselves any favor. First thing I really kind of realized during the election process was rhetoric that was really inappropriate, like Karl Marx, referencing Marxism. Karl Marx is a philosopher / economist, and Marxism is a theory of transitioning from one form of economic state to another. But in a lot of actuality, in comparison to economic standards, we live in a very complex. It's not like we live in just a demographic of capitalism. That's not accurate as well. So I love it when people kind of try to go there and they really don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They're just pushing out rhetoric. Case in point, by definition, socialism is a collective effort to render service, right? So a lot of people want to say this is socialism or that's socialism. Well, if you have insurance, any form of insurance, congratulations, you're a socialist. Who owns the government? The people. The people are taxed to pay to render that service. So the politicians are in fact socialists. I know it sucks, right? You're all like, oh, fucking, this is heresy. But by definition and economic standards, it's the truth. So I don't really care if people want to disagree or not. That's the reality of the scenario. So I love it when people try to, go there. And I'm like, wow, I'm kind of speechless at this particular moment. But, whatever. But yeah, communism is when everything's owned and ran by the government. So in communistic states, there is no, ownership of anything. So that's a communistic state, economically. So, yeah. But you always have people pushing out rhetoric and, and fear-mongering the ignorant population to make them believe otherwise. And, I don't know. That's just crazy to me. But, yeah, so there, down below you'll see a paper from Berkeley. I do recommend. It is a very good read, and it's very accurate. There's a lot more details. But yeah, but when everything was at that point, said open it up, I already knew our imports were down. And I knew we were, had so much in inventory. I knew exactly, how that was going to affect labor costs. I knew it all. I had everything at my disposal. I had everything to make the adjusted, calls because I was educated in it. So, knowledge is power, I guess. But not in this case because I'm powerless to do anything, to stop it. When people especially don't want to listen. Some individuals did, and they took into consideration and account, and they made those, whatever. Not against, just my recommendation. Get a hold of your financial advisor. Ask them about pandemics and economic fallout. If they don't understand that topic, find another one. Okay? There's my recommendation. Not advice, recommendation. But you definitely want to get a hold of somebody who understands the gravity of the scenario. Because if they don't, you're fucked. You're fucked. Seriously. In the housing market, we're going to see supply issues by my calculations, for at least 2 years. So, it is what it is. God dang it. I wish we had a tank. Fuck. Let's take this one off. And let's run this. Fuck, I swear to God, I hate not having a tank. It's gonna blow. Anyways, so, yeah. So, then when everybody will be like pointing the finger at the Biden administration, and I said this on my social media too. Most of the time, presidents really don't have as much to do with the economy that people want to go ahead and think they have. When it comes to tariff, anything. Friggin' sanctions. That's on presidents. That has things to do with the president. Things like that. So I honestly think a lot of times that if people would really pay attention and be as savvy and as educated and knowledgeable as they claim, a lot of this could have been diverted, but unfortunately it wasn't. And that's the facts. And everybody's like, well, how the fuck did he do it? How the fuck did... Well, first off, you need to know that type of math, right? You do. There is math involved. I hate to break this to people, and just pop their bubble. But you do have to have education in that math to be able to make the projections. And it's never always accurate because, economic precision is about accuracy. But, and precision is, how close you are to those, analysis when you're analyzing something, how far it'll go. And, there are other contributing variables that will always, creep up behind you. But overall, yeah, you can almost get, like I said, I wasn't 100%. And, I'm fine with that. I think I still did pretty damn good, given the fact that a lot of people that are still relative in the field completely were off, and they still are. I mean, you can watch whoever you want. You can turn on any YouTube, you can turn on any channel, and the majority of them aren't even talking about the topic I'm talking to you about today. What was the catalyst for the events that transpired? Okay? Nobody's going to tell you that. They don't know. They're ignorant. Right? They are. Everybody wants to be an expert. And unfortunately, they forget they have to also be students. If you're going to be an expert at anything, you always have to remember the number one rule. You're always a student of what you're an expert at. Right? Because, it changes. Everything is, changing constantly. And unless you adapt, and unless you're willing to learn, you're going to become insignificant eventually and no longer considered an expert in your field, because you didn't, like, for example, doctors are always learning new forms of science. Why? To benefit their patients. New techniques, new development in medicine, new surgical treatment methods, all sorts of stuff. So their field is continuously, expanding. And that's no exception to any field. So, fundamentals in economics always are, prominent. So you always have to look at fundamentals, but you have to understand the social demographic that will change the fundamental application, right? So the fundamental doesn't go away, but the social demographic of acceptance or rejection impacts, global economics, or the macroeconomics. Why? Because it's across the board. It's not contained. A lot of times there can be micro effect, right, when we take a look at social demographic, but not to the extent in which trade is typically conducted, because there is supply materials, and those are isolated throughout the world. Common thing I can tell you is, like, I live in Ohio. If I want an orange, I have to buy it. I can't go out and pick it from my tree. I can't grow an orange tree in Ohio. Okay, it's not going to happen. Same thing with, like, if I want a silk shirt, I don't have silk. We don't have silk farms up here. You know what I'm saying? If I want silk, where does the material come from? These are factors, right? And because trade is global, and it always is, you can't change that. You can't, do away with foreign trade. No matter what you think. I love it when, like I said, when people say, everything should be made in America. Well, that would be great, but we don't have all of these materials at our, we don't, as great as America is, we don't have all the materials in the world to do it. Rubber, for example. We make tires still in the United States. However, the material to make tires is foreign. It's a foreign material, right? That's the facts. So what are we going to do? Stop trade, right? And then we got to look at the cost efficiency. If it's cost productive, majority of the time it isn't, because of our situation. And there are a lot of contributing factors that lead to that in our our inability to stay competitive in a manufacturing market. So there's a lot of things we could still be producing. I'm not debating that. That would still be profitable. But there's a majority of a lot of products that have to be produced elsewhere. And then pricing power when inflation, occurs like this. So now you're hearing the same people talk about the same shit. Pricing power. Who has pricing power, right? And if companies don't, there's going and depending, this, I estimate about a 5-year recession, roughly. Everybody's like, it'll be a soft landing. There's no way to I mean, I might be off to a degree, but it's very unlikely a soft landing can be achieved. I never want to say the word impossible, but very, 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 very unlikely. The Feds are already behind. They already kind of pooched themselves, right? Because now they're trying to incrementally, so it doesn't, have a shock factor. Problem of it is the longer they, wait, the more inflation rages, right? So let's put it this way. Next CPI report, if we get anything higher than a 50, right, on the next CPI, the incremental increase that they did was mute. I mean, yeah, it'll have effect long term, but it's not going to impact, the economy anyways. What I'm trying to say is eventually they're going to come out to the same number regardless, and all they're doing is hoping to not disrupt it to a long term effect. So it'll have a shorter duration. But the thing about it is, the longer an economy runs hot, the more the damage, more than likely. So that's what I tell people. You don't want this economy. This economy shouldn't have ran as hot as it did for as long as it did. That was problematic. I mean, it could be worse. I mean, we could have been like, the Great Depression, where they allowed, the economy to run hot for years. 2 years, still bad. But it won't be as bad as the Great Depression. Like I said, this is going to be, I think, even a bigger, form of recession in the forms. Now, I anticipate not a very high-end unemployment recession either. There still will be, a spike in unemployment, but at the same time, the recession is about global growth, about our GDP, our growth capabilities. This is what's going to get stunted, right? And it's going to be for a few years before we can resume that much growth, due to all the circumstances. So, and that's why I encourage everybody to take a look at this documentation that I provided below, so you can determine if what I'm telling you is bullshit, right? Because it's not. Yes, I'm a loser. Yes, I'm insignificant. Yes, all of that's true. I'm a has-been. Nobody. All of it. But to redirect it and to say, oh, we're going to go into recession because of Ukraine. Shut the fuck up. Doug, shut the fuck up, man. Shut up, Doug. That is the most bullshit I've ever heard some bullshit in my life. Oh, it's because of the war. It's like more rhetoric and lies and bullshit. It's like, really, motherfuckers? Really? So there's no contributing factor here in that. But in the longer the war does go on, the more problematic it is. I'm not debating that whatsoever. But unfortunately, these current circumstances are due to a post-pandemic. We will see another scenario play out for the war problems in the next couple of months when it comes to grains and other supply shocks that will be contributing to those factors as well. And my one friend's like, we're going to war. I'm like, we are not going to war. Get the fuck. And I'm like, we're not sending troops over there. Get the fuck over it. And everybody's like, well, you don't like. Listen, man. I'm telling you. I don't need to be psychic. You guys cannot see the big picture of anything. You guys just hit. You guys watch whoever. Somebody's feeding your head. I don't know who the fuck it is, but people are feeding your head full of shit, man. I'm telling you. Now, it's terrible. Now, honestly, I really, really hope all of these conflicts resolve themselves. It's terrible when any life is lost, and let alone innocent lives. So, it's fucked up, man. But, I pretty much called that, too. I have that actually in another conversation with individuals, and I actually have a video on that too. Think about it. I made a video on that too. And yeah, I'm not psychic. I promise. I am not psychic. Alright? So there's no psychic elements going on here. It's just education. Now, did I finalize my degree? No. Actually, my person who recruited me didn't think I needed to. It was kind of weird how I got into it. I was visiting my friend, And his mom was like, you know, oh, you're in college? I'm like, yeah. She's like, what are you hoping to do? And I'm like, I want to work in acquisitions eventually. She's like, what? I was like, yeah, I want to, get my broker's license, probably work, in equities, and then in one form or another go into investment banking, and then the goal is, acquisitions eventually. And she was like, can you take some tests? I'm like, yeah, sure, what the fuck ever. I took some tests. She's like, so why are you in college again? I'm like, I told you why. She's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. You can pass all your state exams and shit. I'm like, okay. She's like, so come work for me. I'm like, okay. I didn't know. Well, fluke, I guess. But whatever. Yeah. So. But yeah. And then shit went downhill fast. I used to work for a bank too. So worked for banks and insurance companies mainly. So then I did a little bit of telemarketing, working with financial products and services. Needless to say, it was fucking hilarious. These motherfuckers, they didn't even know what the fuck my background was when I was over there for the duration in which anytime I was helping their asses. You're really good at this. No, you're fucking kidding me. I wonder why. And I love it then when, big wigs come in and they just think they're hot shit, but really majority of them are just fucking dumb. I'm like, great. We've got morons running shit. But yeah, check it out. Check it out. Do the research for yourself, right? Don't listen to me. Even if I tell you this shit, be speculative. Question everything. Everything. But if you see a correlation, if you see a pattern, if you see it, eventually you're learning. Learning's a good thing, right? Learning is a very good thing. It's not bad, I promise. Once you see a correlation, you can be like, whoa, that is so crazy. It's been bittersweet for me. Like I said, it's been very bittersweet. Yeah. Everything's happening, as expected, for me anyways. But, yeah. But everybody else, I don't know what to tell people. I would have exploited all of this had I still been in it. I'll be honest with you. But I couldn't. So I guess that's a good thing, because I would have. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and say, I would have been this really nice guy, and I totally would have been whatever. No, I had really bad intentions, man. I wanted to fucking liquidate companies. That was my goal. Fucking get rid of them. Get rid of them. Oh, and the pain's coming. Oh, the pain is coming. I promise you. I promise. Like I said, you guys want to know the real deal? Go look at Maverick, the Maverick on Wall Street. The Maverick of Wall Street. Go check out his channel. I'm telling you, man. I'm not even going to lie to you guys. That dude's legit. That dude has fundamentals and technicals. I can't stand, technicals are fine. I'm not opposed to technicals. But, in a scenario like this, right, the technicals are, an indicator to things that's already transpired, right? Like, your support line, raised up by, your annuals. But if annuals are already manipulated, can you really depend on technicals? That becomes my question. So when you have overvalued assets and you're caught left off guard, you're, anticipating everything from technicals. And then all of a sudden you're caught off guard and you're like, oh, fuck. So whatever. That's why I don't bank on technicals. I'm like, no, that ain't me, man. You know, I go long term. You know, but I always tell people there's a difference between traders. You know, people who do trades. Try to short the market, or try to, whatever. Than investors. But investors are always playing long, right? But whatever. But yeah, check it out for yourself. You be the determining factor. Don't listen to anybody else. Read the material, look what's going on around you, and put two and two together. Then, if you want to get into further details, then, get some education in economics, take some accounting, take some stock classes, and now you can analyze equity markets. Good luck. Peace.